Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 104. I'm your host, Barney Smith of storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the highly talented and acclaimed comic creator, Jorge Zevallos. Jorge, how you doing?
I'm doing really great, actually. I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm doing good, man.
Excellent. I mean, and you're here. You just over the past months ago, you came out with your action-packed one-shot sci-fi comic, Wall Breakers, which we're going to be talking a bit about with you, and also kind of talking a bit about some of the things that you talked you've mentioned as well about issues of how to use. Because what you've done with this comic book compared to some other artists that we've talked to in the past is that you are a kind of a firm believer of the fact that you want to see the artist's hands in the work as compared to some digital stuff. So you're one of the few diehard pen and brush to paper kind of artists, which we really do appreciate to talk to you about that. And you started off, you went to art school, and you went to one of those famous art schools in New York City, correct?
Yeah, I went to SVA, learn.
Okay.
So, or back then I was like, I'm not a cartoonist, I'm an artist, whatever. So it's cartooning, so I'm good.
Right.
You get over that, it's like, oh, whatever. Yeah, so.
And so how did you get your story? So you went to art school. That means you're probably drawing at a young age. What made you kind of give us those steps between what happened in art school, and you said in a previous interview, like Art School Confidential was one of the movies that kind of spoke to you as well. It seems to have been a slice of life issue for you. So talk to us between, after graduating from art school to creating this comic book. What were some of the steps that got you into, utilizing the skills that you learned in art school to create this piece?
Yeah, I knew when I left high school that I knew, I guess at that time I was like, what was I? Pretty young, and I didn't even know what I wanted to do, as most young students, they don't know, or young people don't know what to do. But I knew that to be an artist, I guess at that time, an artiste, right? So I heard about and that movie, Art School Confidential, like I guess you heard it before. It really kind of was like that. I don't know what it's like now. Time is like so bizarre. Like it's just a bunch of like bizarre people. It's an art world, it's like and it would be like all kinds of like strange kind of personalities. But what I like about it was that when I was there, I ended up meeting Klaus Janson, and so that was kind of cool, because for the first time, like, I spoke to somebody who did comics, and even though I studied comics before, like whatever I could get my hands on, like they had the high comics, the Marvel Way, and the usual stuff, the Will Eisner like sequential books, or the Scott McCloud like understanding comics, which only really, I didn't understand comics, it just confused me more. Reading that book is like, whoa, it's too much. But but I read it anyway, because it's like, I guess I just want to saturate my mind of comics in any way that I could. But when I met it, like it's amazing how simple concepts can like really improve the way you think about like your work, whether it's writing or whatever, right? Anything that you do that's your art, like it's all about storytelling. Like, do we need this shot? Is this necessary? Is there a way that we speed this up? Can we slow this down? It's really about clarity. He kind of really emphasized like clarity of story, and he in and show us pages like at the time he was doing John Romita Jr. on. He was like doing the Wolverine and State. So I would see like the scale of the pages, like the actual, pages, like the penciled pages of Romita, and it was so like loose, like it was actually really cool, because it's like, wow, look how loose he is, because I guess he's just producing pages. So I saw that. I saw, Garcia Lopez's and everybody. Like, so it was just cool to see that scale. But anyway, after I at college, as a cartoonist, as a comic artist, like you're always like you get rejected like a million times, like by editors. Like basically, you just rejected, and it's true. Back then, I would go to the New Comic Con, like and it was really early at the time. We're talking '07 or something like that. What was frustrating at the time was that I knew that even though my mind, I had a very good idea of what makes a good comic, and my storytelling was good, but my drawing wasn't necessarily like at that level, that prime time. So that was really like kind of frustrating, because like, okay, I know that even though my mind is right, my skill is not there. So it's kind of frustrating. But so, I would do a little odd illustration work, and then eventually that led into like working in general and just kind of like doing my comics. And it got to a point where I was doing some stuff for different people. I was horrible at deadlines, by the way. I would like take way too long, or something would happen, like the editor, like he gave me more time, but not because he could, just because like, it was like God or something. It was like, something happened with the editor, like his car, like was flooded or something. Oh, I don't have time to get your pages. You have an extra week. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, awesome. All right, no problem. And then I'm like, oh my God, like another 7 days. Okay, I can do it now. So, but this is happening over and over. But it got to a point where a lot of the scripts that I would find, I didn't really like. And I would go to the comic shops, like, and we're talking, this was over several years. Like, so I would just be kind of working a normal job, and then I would go to the comic store, and I just did find for years, like a book that I wanted, like that I really wanted, like enough to buy. As comics are getting, they're kind of pricey now, like the price of the books.
Right.
So now it's like you really got to pull me, to really want to pick it up. And maybe, or I don't know, like your age or anything, but I grew up where like I used to have like $20 in my pocket, and they had like maybe $1.25, $1.50, sometimes 99 cents books. And I would go in there with $20, and you get like a whole bag of comics. You spread it out on your desk. You got all these new books, and I love that. But I mean, we're talking $5 a pop, like that. That kind of hurts. So, yeah. but anyway, back to what I'm like going everywhere. So I'm like looking for a book. I couldn't find it, and I said one day, I was like, you know what? Like I think it was after going to like companies, and I got into a few like in New York, there's all these companies like come and go, like, okay, we're gonna do, and they're like, it's like a big company, like, or financed by a video game company that wants to do, so it's like an experiment. So they're like, okay, let's do a comic, but it never like really set sales, or make a year or two, and then they shut it down, and then somebody else builds another company. It's like that. It's, and I would get these, and I just found, so I found, okay, what do I like? Okay, I like movies. Like, I love movies at the time. I like action movies, and I like Europe. I like myself personally, I love the older, like, EC comics, the horror comics, just the boldness of the line, the simplicity. And I wanted to take all that stuff, the European, like most of the kind of like EC style, like, kind of clarity of storytelling, the action movies like Die Hard and French Connection, Police Story, and just put everything is like a fusion. And just, that's like my project, not knowing that it was going to be what it is today, because I just wanted to draw, just create something new. I didn't intend on inking it. I didn't even intend on lettering it. So along the way, yeah, it was like everything was like literally like it was like a marathon. It was like, okay, so I'm drawing pages, and then I'm taking the pages to conventions, and I'm showing it to professionals. I'm showing it to John Paul Leon. I'm showing it to Walt Simonson. I'm showing it to Kim Jong-gi from Korea. I'm showing it to David Mazzucchelli, Eric Larson, all these professionals. I'm showing it to them, and they're like, it's good. And John Paul Leon was like, you got to ink this stuff. I had no intention. I was like, wait, what? You want me to ink? That's why it's so detailed. I didn't intend to ink that stuff. So, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I got to ink it now. And oh my God, it was so like frustrating, because if I had known that I was going to ink that, I would not have made it detailed, because it's because you have to draw it 2 times over, right? It's like, so I'm like, oh my God, like, so, and I did that. But by the way, it was really difficult, and I lettered it and everything, but it was like, oh my God, it was like excruciating. It was like a kidney stone or something. Like, it was just, and it was painful, and and your ego is like destroyed, because it's like, I'm looking at my pencils like, okay, how the hell? Because my drawings, at least on this particular book, I had to experiment, and I knew, okay, the brush really was the only thing that was able to kind of recreate my kind of looseness, or the way that I drew with the original pencils. Right. So I literally inked almost even if you look straight, like I was an idiot. Like, I did everything in brush, like in the straight lines. And I'm looking at that book right now, and I see edges that are straight. It's so straight that you could have just used the pen, like, because there's no like, you didn't even tell the reader that it was done by brush. It's like, well, if you're gonna do it that straight, just use like a pen. But but I did it because I was like, I don't know, I was a psycho. I was like, let's make it as difficult and as like as difficult and as humanly possible. That was the whole point of this book. How can I annihilate myself? And so that was the purpose. Yeah, because now it's like, I really like learned a lot, and I was like, never just, Jorge, look for there's a way to do it that's like, economical, is faster, more convenient. So that's going to be for the next one. But for this one, it was just like, yeah, just freaking kill yourself. Like, okay, cool. so yeah, and that's kind of where we ended up doing this thing. And this book actually, I ended up like, when it was all finished, I shopped it around and stuff, and it was fun showing it to people in conventions, and people would gather around, like, because I would bring it like to the pros. I would just, like I mentioned before, I would bring it to like Eric Larson, and he's there with his Savage Dragon pages, right, all over the desk and everything. And I was like, "Hi, Eric, can I show you my pages?" And he was eating a hot dog, And then he was like, "Okay, sure." And he puts it to the side, and like he puts all the Savage he was penciling like a Savage Dragon right there, and he put it to the side, and he opened my book, and all these people like gather around us. Like, oh, that's pretty cool, right? Yeah. And he looked at me like, you got to find a way to like simplify it. You know that, right? Because this is taking forever. I was like, yeah, I know. But what can you do, right? Like, I just did it. It's done. Whatever. Right. So, so I ended up. Drew, he runs like Snowy Works, his website. Snowy. I came across his work, or I came across his like, he publishes books and stuff like that, and he wanted an anthology, and I set up like some stuff, and the story was going to be in the anthology, but I think he had like a kind of like a page limit to the anthology. We ended up going back and forth, and he was like, why don't we just do it a one shot? I said, yeah, let's. I actually told him, like, let's do a one shot, and so we did it that way, and I produced a cover for it, and I did like a cover for that, like I said, and it ended up being what it is, and because of that, it's like it's managed to like really get around, and so I had to thank Drew for that, because it's really like really gone out there, like everywhere because of that. So and here we talking to you finally, yeah, started from the bottom. Okay, so now we're here. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So let me ask you, Jorge. You had so one of the things that you talked about, and I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember you talking about that you prefer to make sure you put in the lettering first. Is that true?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Even though, let me just mention, like, for the, and because I learned it the hard way, that book was not lettered initially. Okay. So there was areas where there was like detail.
Yeah.
And then I'm, because I'm writing like the story, and I'm like, okay, where am I going to put this thing? And so I have to like reverse engineer stuff and like figure out like, okay, it was a freaking nightmare. Like, I'm not even going to, sugarcoat it. It was a freaking nightmare, to do this book, because it's like, I made so many mistakes that I had to correct. It was insane. But the lettering before, actually, I got that from Joe Kubert, because
Really?
he would say that, like, because of the comic artists of, at his time, like, or CC Beck, like, when he did like the Shazam, or Captain Marvel, sorry. But they would do that, because it's like, and it makes sense. When I heard him say that, he was like, yeah, you letter it, like, you do the basic like layouts on the page, so where like the figure is going to be, blah blah blah, but you put in where the balloons are going to be, or where the parts of the script are going to show up on the page, because it's like, why are you going to waste time on areas that you're not going to see that anyway? It's just going to be a word balloon. So at least how much work you have to do, so you don't waste time drawing areas that nobody's going to see. And it makes sense. It's like, why didn't I think of that? So I do that now, even with the stuff like I have on my desk, which I'm doing like a 10 pager again for Drew. uh this is for an anthology, like it's well, we'll talk about that later, but it's so that's what I do. We do the lettering, and I prefer that, because at least it's a time to like you can sort of like focus yourself before the drawing starts, so I do the panels now, like
Yeah.
the borders, and then the lettering, and then if I start inking, I do the lettering first, and then I worry about everything else, because that simplifies things. It's like, and it's a sense of clarity. You get a sense of the flow, like of your eye and stuff like that. So I do that. Yeah, we do it that way. So I'm learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm learning.
So you had well, and the other thing that you said that kind of like really hit home for me is that, and it makes sense. It's one of those things that it doesn't matter how many times you read a comic, it doesn't matter how many times you lay out. But you said it succinctly you said it before, is that you only have so much real estate
Yes.
on a page.
Yeah.
So not only are you telling a story, but you're also kind of doing the layout and the design and the movement of where to put what.
Yeah.
So talk to us a bit more about that, about the finite real estate that you have to work with as a
Yeah.
comic creator.
Yeah, and now that you remind me of that, it's because I just saw like a brief little documentary. Sometimes I'm drawing and I just want like background noise, whatever. So I put on like a free, well, nothing is free. But, you put like the Roku TV, and they have like the documentaries that are not like HBO Max, whatever, just the standard stuff. And then you see, and I did that too, like as comic artists, like when they do a portfolio, they don't, a lot of them still do like a bunch of pinups, but they don't show like storytelling pages. And
Right.
so it's true, we only have like a 10 by 15 size, and so that means you don't have you have to like basically pick your shots, because you only have so much space. So is it going to be a grid? Is it going to be like a 6 panel? Is it going to be 12? Is it going to be 2? Is it going to be wide? Is it going to be shapes? If it's not, like, maybe it's different kinds of angular shapes or whatever. So and that's something that, by the way, I just think everything you do, it has to mean something, because you don't have a lot of space. And my personal belief is, because of the world that we live in today, and there's so much technology and so many forms of entertainment that are so much more immersive, like obviously the big ones like video games, that's like the huge one, or even movies or TV, like it's always been. But specifically gaming, your comics have to be, not only should they be written in a way that is constantly engaging your mind, but the art on the page, it doesn't necessarily have to be detailed, but it has to be perfectly composed and aesthetic, and I mean entirely, like entirely perfectly composed and aesthetic, because you're kind of like going upstream in terms of like engaging your audience nowadays. So you really got to be like really really good, like you're and I'm talking about design, I'm talking about, you know, how you compose the page and stuff like that. So so yeah, I look at that a lot, and that's something that you can kind of try to teach somebody. You kind of get intuitively. You have to know how to tell a story, because if you don't know that, it's like hard to like get. It's like a film or something. Like I could you know, show you the mechanics. I can show you, okay, wide angle usually means this, close up means this, and it's like, you know, teach somebody that. But anyway, I think I rambled on there a bit. But, yeah.
No, that's good. And the other thing too is that you also talk about the importance of crosshatching and how to create, because you know we always hear about how important it is to where you put your word bubbles determines on where you're going to be reading it. You know, the whole Z pattern. You got to read it like that.
Yep.
But you also mentioned too is like that you found the importance of how you actually have the direction of the
perspective.
objects and perspective. You
Yep.
know, and a good example is that you have with when he's when the main protagonist is jumping out the window is one aspect of. So your eye travels not only with where you follow with the word bubbles, but also where you watch. Where you watch, and you, like you said, you have to mention the cross-hatching. Like, an example. Do you want to talk about this image here? Where did you intend the eye to go on this?
Yeah, it's a. I mean, it's a pretty simple kind of thing. It's just this thing was more about kind of like the feeling that I wanted on this page actually was kind of busy.
Okay,
you know, it's a lot.
So Jorge, for our audio listeners, do you want to just describe what the page is?
Yeah, or like what's happening.
Yeah.
Okay, so. All right, so we got a character here. He just there's in the apartment that he's in. Basically, a bunch of these sort of like alien creatures are kind of emanating from a hole in the wall, and so he decides in the previous page he took a chair and he flung it out to break the glass of the apartment window. So he flings it out there, and then he kind of jumps out and now, as soon as he jumps out, and this is kind of a rough cut, by the way, like in film, sometimes they do that where, you know, there's a rough cut because you kind of like, you kind of want to keep the momentum going, and you don't want to kind of, it happens sometimes where you don't want to kind of hold on to like minutia. Like, let's say for this example, this is actually a good example of a page that is kind of like some people notice, some people don't. And a lot of films are like that, where they're like, wait a second, didn't I just see you like spray paint that painting, and then I see it, it's like no paint on it. But anyway, so he throws he throws a chair out the window, he jumps out the window. Now there is an awning underneath him, but you don't actually see him land on that awning. He's just kind of running in the next panel. So you know, but for those that don't catch that, they're kind of like, you know, they're just going with it. It's like, okay, you know, aliens are coming out, he's running down the street, and these creatures are following him. But you can see that the design is, you know, it's like it's a big panel at the top, and then the next one is the long kind of vertical, because it's vertical and long because of the height of the building. You know, how am I going to show the height? How am I going to show, you know, that he's jumping out and down into something? You got to show that, and you could have done that different ways. You could have maybe done it simpler, but I was like, no, I want this to be kind of the kind of a shot there, like a real heroic shot, and maybe the arm is breaking into the other panel there, so it has a little bit of a, you know, pushing and pulling there with the dimension. You know, there's a flatness to it, but there's some dimension too. And of course, the creatures are going left to right. They're leading the eye into the next panel. You know, so it's insinuating, you know, to look into left to right. Now, in terms of design, if you notice, the last 2 pages of this book was much more design heavy, because those pages, the last 2 pages, I don't know if you know this, but Drew said to me when we were going to do the book that I needed to add 2 more pages so that he could, because he wanted a certain number. So my mind had already changed a little bit by that time. So it was more design heavy, and so you see the last two, you could see that it's much more about shapes, much more about like simplicity and flow. So this was at a point in drawing the book where I was like, okay, I want to just like show how crazy I can be, how frantic and detailed and all over the place. Like, let's just like milk this. Let's just like show you this, detail and crazy stuff. So but yeah, this is kind of like a concept of like a storytelling. You use like a long horizontal pages for like a landscape, or a lot of comics really is kind of like the concepts that we learn in art, which is portraiture, landscape. It doesn't really change. It's just you're just using it like those people in front of the apartment building. That's kind of like a landscape, like a city landscape. Busy,
Right.
but it's city, and then you have the guy jumping, and so anyway, so yeah. um
Yeah, and like not to give away we won't give away the ending of
right.
the 20, but there definitely is like, so yeah, once I heard that you actually had like, was it page 26 or so was supposedly was going to be the last ending, it left it off like,
Yes,
wow,
right.
this is going to be
That's
we
it.
we can see a sequel to this. We'll see what happens, and
Right,
then but
right,
then when you add those last two pages, then it's
right,
like, all right, yeah,
right,
this is a one shot. Like,
right.
it's like
Yeah,
it,
right.
yeah,
But now you can see, if you see those last two, you can see that it's my thinking was different there, because the very last page is all about circles. It's ovals, curves, circles. It's all about circles and curves.
yeah,
The curve of a car. Wheels.
right.
That it's all about that, orbs and ellipses and all that kind of stuff. But anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, so
And no, because yeah, in the last, it's the same talking thing in the first page. So you do kind of bookend it a bit with the
a bit, yeah.
yeah, which was a good. You have this, yeah, this,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that kind of like weird, like and you notice that it's like an egg beater type thing or something,
right.
but even the design, it changed a little, from the beginning to the last. And my explanation for that is, well, maybe it's a different model. So
Right.
they're not all the same. You got old models, you got new models. So this one, I had this kind of complicated design, and then when I do at the end, it's a little bit more streamlined. It's not as busy. It's a little bit smoother.
Right.
So, but it's fun. I mean, it's all yeah. It was just like crazy. I mean, I was just like, whatever. Let's just go crazy.
So what would you say? What was the difference between, say, page one by timeline wise for you,
Right.
between page 1 and page 28?
What's the difference? Like time? What do you mean? Like time?
Like how long ago between when you drew
Oh,
page
okay,
1
okay.
and when you moved page
Ooh,
28?
yeah, that had to be actually, by the time I finished it, it was quite a while. It was like maybe 2 or 3 years actually before I
Wow.
did the last two, because I kind of just had it there and I was doing other things, and so that's why it is a little different. And if you see the next work that's coming up, it is very different, actually, like very different. It's
Yeah.
actually like really different, because with this book, I consider it not as it's a comic book, but it's more with the mentality of like as if I were making a movie. It's
Right.
thinking like that. So I was kind of limited in that way, because as a movie, you're always thinking like, okay, like there's certain things you can do in comics, in the comics language, that you cannot do in film. So I was kind of limiting myself, in drawing this book. If I do another Wallbreakers book, it's kind of like it's cinema. It's a love of cinema and a love of comics, and those are kind of tough to marry, because even though they're both storytelling devices, when you're limiting yourself when you're trying to kind of make a movie, when you're drawing comics, why don't you just let comics like be comics? Let it do what it does. It's like,
Right.
you don't have to show the backgrounds of everything. You can insinuate. You could use silhouettes. You could simplify. You can, you can be much. It's more about art really and story. So, but with this one, it was more like I was just thinking about Willem Friedkin and the French Connection. In my head, like that's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Die Hard. McTiernan. John McTiernan. So yeah, yeah.
When also the monster was an inspiration for you from Evil Dead 2, correct?
There we go. So
Yeah.
I totally, you just reminded me that it's that Sam Raimi like crazy, Evil Dead, like just in I love that. You know, the Sam Raimi like Evil Dead 2 is, oh my god, so I love that stuff. So I just everything I love, just throw it in there because I'm working like so long on it. You got to put that in there, you know, to give you enthusiasm to follow through. You know. Yeah.
So comparing, you said about 3 years difference between page 1 and page 28.
Right.
What were the
Well, it's amazing how you put it that way.
But I guess my question is like, what were the things that you learned that you implemented on page 28 that weren't in page 1, for instance?
To design basically, and I'll try to explain it, but it's a little bit tough, but I try to explain it is when I do a page now, like before it would be, okay, I'm going to tell a story and then I'm going to just like cut the page up in a certain amount of panels, you know, and I would think of it in terms of, okay, I'm going to slice the page up into, let's say 6 panels or, you know, 4 or 8 or whatever. By the time I got to the new stuff, I looked at it as if, okay, I'm not just thinking about the panels. Yeah, and you can see there, like, I'm not thinking just about the panels, but I'm thinking about the elements in the within the panel, like the lines and how they're sort of pointing, or the shapes, you know, and how the shapes are relating. You know, it's not just like, okay, I'm going to cut this into 6 panels. I'm going to cut this into 4 panels. Now it's okay. The shapes. I'm thinking shapes, major shapes. You know, the size of the head. Like even in that panel right there, you notice that everything in that page right there, what's important is right in the middle of it's like right, you could draw a line from the top in the middle to the bottom. Every element that you want to look at is in the middle.
Oh,
So
okay.
You notice like you're looking at the guy, you're looking at the officer, you're looking at, it's all down the line, down the middle. So,
Right.
So I'm thinking more simple. You know, that's kind of my mentality. Think more simple, think more bolder, you know, streamline. You know, think simple and streamline. And you know, with these, I did do that to a certain degree, but it was the mentality was different because I specifically was looking for a challenge, and it was more cinema. Like, look at those panels; those are like storyboards, you know.
Right.
And maybe now, if I did that and I just kind of let comics do what it does, maybe it wouldn't be like that. It would be a different look. It would be a different design. This is like storyboard stuff. Like,
Right.
you know, that's a camera angle. I mean, you know, it's yeah.
Hey folks, I just wanted to take a quick break and say thank you so much for listening and watching Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. If you can, please subscribe. If you can, hit the like button. Go ahead and leave a review on your favorite podcast app that you might be listening to this on. And remember, always support local artists, support local writers, support independent creators. It sure does mean a lot to them. And we will be here at Storycomic to make sure that their voices are being heard. Thank you.
Yeah.
But you did mention too that you're like, talk to us about that. One of your, I don't want to call it an apprehension, but what do you have, it like apprehensions towards the use of what, as you call them, like Dutch angles? Do you want to explain that?
The Dutch angles. I see a lot of. I did it too, by the way. You know, I'm guilty of the same thing. But you know, that goes back to, you know, the question everything in life. Why are you doing it? You know, it's
right.
It's a big one for me. Like, why are you doing this? Like, are you just doing it because you want to make your pages exciting, or is there a reason? It's like, a lot of times, you know, people put Dutch angles just because to you know, make it. A comic is not exciting. I mean, a comic doesn't talk. It doesn't. It has no noise. It's a freaking page. I mean, you're looking at a you know, page with artwork and letters. So what I'm looking for is, if there's a Dutch angle, which I don't really like Dutch angles. I think it's like so overdone. Because it makes the work like flatter in a way. It's like, because you're kind of tilting it, but there's no reason. So I see like a Marvel comic, a guy's walking into I don't know, the X-Men mansion, and it's like a Dutch angle. He's just walking into the mansion. There's no reason for the angle. He's just walking in. It's like, why are you doing that? You could have had a nice, wide angle of him, just kind of like, or even just him like taking 5 hours, because you have to draw every brick on the side of the mansion, and it's at a Dutch angle. It's like you're wasting real estate on the page for something that you really don't have to. You could save that for the cool stuff, like I don't know, Wolverine is in the danger room or whatever. So it has to be a why. There has to be a why. Why are you doing a Dutch angle? If there's a good reason, like an earthquake or something, okay, fine, but you really don't need to do that. So and it throws the rhythm off. It throws the rhythm of how your eye reads. It throws it off. I like to have things now where it's almost like I'm building a track. I'm building like a let's say, like if you go to these vacation places like Disney or Universal Studios, and there's like a tour and you're on a railroad track. I'm building rails so that once you step in, it's a smooth ride. Your eye just goes in. It's a rail, and it's like you're just following. You're just sitting in the car and you're looking, and it's easy. I'm like, I have control of your eye. You don't have to work at it. You just go. It's a smooth flow. So that's what I do now. It's like everything is real smooth. There's no like jerky, when you do the Dutch angle, it's like jerking you around. It's not a smooth read. It's like, whoa, wait, what just happened? So I like it nice and smooth. That's kind of how I do it now.
So just to give the audience just a sense of an example of what and then basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but a Dutch angle is just when they kind of have a slanted.
When you tilt it, yeah, you just tilt it,
Okay.
almost like what they did on the Batman show, like the Adam West. Sometimes they would tilt the camera, like when somebody's running or something. So yeah, it's just taking a camera, or you take your phone, or I'm taking my laptop. This thing. I mean, this. There has to be a reason for that. If I just like, that's the Dutch angle in cinema, right? They call it that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what would you say would be an example of one, like as a comic creator? And you said there's been times where you use it. What is the effect that the artist wants to create with a Dutch angle?
I can just say, me personally, the concept, the idea is that it's causing a sort of like this is the psychology that a lot of art students or comic artists follow, that they got from a book, let's say like the famous book How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, which I think, while it was cool at the time and it was great to see the John Buscema drawings and the Jack Kirby stuff, and the concepts that they had were okay, because it talks about having a splash page and so forth. The problem with that book is that it kind of just tells you, like, that whole Dutch angle concept, a lot of that comes from, I think, that book. It popularized a little bit from, because it would say, okay, this is a panel of like, two people talking in a room, with a desk, and then look at the boring, this is a boring drawing, and you see John Buscema, guy smoking a cigarette in a drawing and tilting it, put the Dutch angle. And so the idea is to make it more exciting.
Okay.
But you gotta have a reason. So while a lot of people, they do that because the idea is they want to make it exciting. My thing is, you don't always have to be necessarily exciting, but you should always be aesthetic and interesting to look at. It doesn't have to be exciting. Like, you don't always have to be excited. The rhythm of the drawings. I what a lot of the people doing that's what the intent is, but they don't realize that they're doing cliches. They're following a cliche that doesn't make it unique. It just makes it boring now, because Dutch angles is nothing new. It's been around forever. So if you're going to do it, I mean, I kind of did it with that car there. It is at an angle. It's not perfectly straight, but I wanted that because at that time I wanted a little bit of a tension there, and I tilted it just enough. Not a lot, just enough. And I did it because I wanted to show the sky and the ground. If I had left it completely flat, you're not going to see the sky and you can't get a sense of scale. Right. So that's why, you see, that's my reason why I did that. I want to show the sky too. Right. So, but yeah.
And do you have, and so what are some of the things, what would be your tips for that you would give to independent comic creators on on how to, go from putting a story on there? What are some of your tips you would say to make, putting a story together and then being able to, get it published like this?
Well, first of all, I think now is the best time to do like your own work. If you have the energy for it, if you have the enthusiasm, or especially the motivation, you
Right.
know, the really the hard one is the first book that you do. That's the hard one, because if you're used to like waiting for scripts or waiting for people to give you opportunities, I noticed that is that people, they don't really jump the gun because maybe in their mind they don't really, I don't know, they don't have the confidence, or they just don't have the motivation. That's the big word, is the motivation. But once you go through jumping through the hoops of doing your book, which is really, really hard, like, and I learned doing this book. But once you do the first one, it's amazing how your skill goes, like the growth of your skill, it expands so quickly just doing the first one on your own, because it's all on you. So
Right.
going to make like a ton of mistakes, but that's the point. Yes, make those mistakes so that you learn and then you can correct them. And so the next book you do, because you all those mistakes on the first one, you're going to be like, okay, now I know how to do it. It's faster. Now I can be more economical. Your storytelling is better. Your lettering is better. Everything is better. And you only really do that when you have to do an entire book yourself. When you're not relying on the letter or the ink or whatever, you do everything. So my tip really for the artist is it's amazing. Like, you just, it doesn't have to be a complicated story, but just do like an actual book, maybe not even like 4 or 5 pages, but I personally recommend like an entire comic, just one entire comic where you letter it, where you ink it, where you pencil it, you do the whole thing yourself, because it's hard. But I cannot tell you, like, it's like art school condensed, like because it's like yeah, because, and like where it's your focus is so like you have like this laser focus, so every mistake that you do, it's all there, and it's like you're learning, and your ego takes a humongous beating. It's like a horrible beating, but it humbles you, and in the humbling, you start to be very what do you call it, very gracious, you're grateful, for every good drawing that you have, and you learn to correct things, and you learn, to be more simple, or more detailed, and you're more sensitive to how to tell a good story. But I highly recommend it. It is hard, and I know a lot of artists have egos, and they hate to be rejected and all that kind of stuff. But it I implore people, and there's even people that I talk to that are working for let's say publishers or whatever, the bigger ones or whatever, and I say to them, it's like, if I were you, I wouldn't wait anymore for them to give me an opportunity. Just, bro, you can draw. We have internet now. You can scan your work. You can self-publish now. What are you waiting for? Like, you're just waiting because I don't know, you're kind of afraid or something. So, so just do it, and you're gonna make mistakes, but that's okay. That's okay. Do your thing, and then I would say, show it to everybody. Show it. This is what I did with the book. I showed it to when I say everybody, like, I mean everyone, whoever. I don't care. And I love it. I love the feedback. I love everything that comes with it. I love it. I love it all.
Right.
So it really helps you grow as an artist, as a person. It humbles you. You learn so much from just doing one. So that's what I would suggest for sure.
Okay. And
Yeah.
what were some of the tips that you were given, some advice that you were giving, halfway through what your career so far, that you wished you knew when you were starting out?
Um. I would say, um, well, number one is relax. You got to relax. When I went to art school, I think I rubbed people the wrong eye because I was so serious. I was super serious, like, because I was like, I'm not here to mess around. I want to, because there are people there that, like, they don't want to go to real college, so it's like a vacation. But I was there. I was like, no, I'm here because I want to be really good. And I was like super serious, super, super serious. And I think because of that, I wasn't like I don't know. It might have rubbed off because there would be critiques. Like we would have our pages up like every 2 weeks. We have, pages to critique, and everybody would say something, and then it was my turn to say, okay, Jorge, what do you have to say? And everybody's like, oh, here we go. And then I would say like, okay, why you do this? Why you do that? Why you do this? This doesn't work. Whatever, right? So, and then I would draw like on the what do you call it? The chalkboard, and I would show like, why don't you do it like this? Why So I was kind of too high strung. Now I'm like Zen. Like I'm super Zen. I love everybody. I love even like things that like maybe not that good, because I can see potential in literally anything, even if it's like a grain, like a little a piece of a little speck of talent or whatever. I can see that, and if I see somebody's pages, I go, okay, you see this here, whatever this is here, this is working here. Just take that, magnify it. Whatever you were thinking of here, magnify that, and then let's see where you can go from there. So I'm much more optimistic now, and I'm much more relaxed. That's the big one, relax. And now, relax. Don't try to impress necessarily, but tell a good story, and don't worry about like whether it's good or not, like or it's not in vogue, or because a lot of people they are so obsessed with their trends. Like I've learned that I don't really necessarily belong in any type of style or genre, because I grew up liking the older artists. Even when I was younger, everybody was looking at whatever was hot at the time, Capullo on Spawn or whatever, which I appreciated, by the way. I like the stuff that was coming out at the time that I was reading comics in the late 90s, the mid to late 90s, maybe 2000s. I appreciated that, but I did love the older I must admit, like some artists, they say they appreciate it later in life. No, I appreciated when I was young. I appreciated Joe Kubert a lot when I was in my teenagers. Like I saw it and I knew right away, this is great. Even though it was so different, I liked it because it was so different. I love Gene Colan. I love Kirby and Toth when I met that, and I saw the EC Johnny Craig and Bernie Krigstein. And, those are the guys that Doug Wildley, who does like the Johnny Quest stuff. And to me, I love that stuff so much. Kirby, of course, Mobius, I love. So to me, I love them so much that's just what I like. And I'm sure there's a lot of like modern artists and the contemporary stuff, and they're so like detailed. They put like 100 hours into like an eyeball or something, but and that's cool and everything, and it's all digital and Photoshop. But I'm sorry, personally, there's something about the what do you call it, the authenticity of the drawing of the past, where it was like, okay, we survived the depression, we survived World War II, we need to feed our families, we're gonna make art, but there's a deadline, and so they found ways to be very beautiful in making art, but do it fast.
Right.
So that's the philosophy. So because of that, I love those artists, and I wish that I got to talk to these guys. They seem so they survive so much, and they're so different. I don't know. These are like a different class of guys. So I miss that. But that's my advice. I go on way too long, but that's what I was gonna say. I went everywhere. Yeah.
But you said, and also too, I think you mentioned it was like that. You only see when you like never compare yourself to other artists, because you don't see their bad stuff. They're only seeing their good stuff.
Yeah.
So and also too is like, and I think what you said, in a different interview too, is just like embrace those bad drawings, because everybody has those bad drawings in you. You just get them out. Just get them out first.
Yeah, and just draw them, get them out, and sometimes I would keep bad drawings. It's okay. Everybody makes bad drawings. Don't worry about it. You just stay in the game. I would say, if you're going to simplify this philosophy, stay in the game. If you quit, then you're going to lose. But if you stay in the game long enough, you're going to be amazing. But you got to stay. You got to stay in the game. That's all.
Right. But so if people want to see more of your work, where can they find your stuff?
Well, right now, they can just go to like the Snowy Works, and they can go to the site, and there is like the Instagram is there for Snowy Works as well. I know that they're having they're gonna have a Kickstarter coming up soon. So any kind of information will be probably through their Instagram or their website. But so if they want to follow, I do intend on doing some more pages for an upcoming anthology that they're going to do. So look out for that. I actually have them on my desk right now. I did like maybe 4 pages yesterday, so I got another. I'm gonna do 10, so I got to finish the others. So my intent is do those pages, and it's gonna be in an anthology. It's basically the theme is gonna be like a space, but I'm gonna do it with a kind of a let's just say, on the surface it's space on the surface, but really it's not really a space comic. Actually, it's actually this is what I love about it. It's space, and I know it's gonna sound weird, but I'm just gonna say like it is in space. That's true. It is in space, like that. But I'm gonna give it like a different twist, where it's like, again, it's following this theme of like this comics that they used to do like in the 40s, which is like kind of a romance comic. But again, it's not gonna be corny. But it takes place in space, but it has a certain element of that in space. So
do you want to did you want to give us a sneak peek at one of your works in progress?
I don't know, should I? Well, maybe not. I don't but I have some things in here. Well, maybe not, because Drew's gonna probably be upset, but but no, I'll maybe I'll no. Yeah, I don't want to piss him off, but I won't show anything here. But because there's like so few pages, but so, and he doesn't even really know like how much is. I just insinuated, like he was like, yeah, I need like a couple pages. Can you do something? I said, oh, okay. So how many? Oh, like 10. And then I said, okay, I think I got something, but he doesn't know. Like I have.
Oh, he doesn't know.
Okay, he didn't know that. So like I didn't, because I'm like, let me just do it, and then we'll talk about it later.
Right.
So, but so yeah, you can go to Snowyworks. You can check out whatever news updates is from there, and Kickstarter everything.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, sure.
And you have an Instagram handle though, don't you?
My Instagram actually, I have to it's down now because I have to update it and fix it. So so it's not up now, but my stuff is it'll be probably he'll post some stuff on his Instagram, whatever I'm doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks a lot, Jorge. This has been great. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, you too, man. It was fun. I mean, the time flew, but I appreciate it. And yeah, we kind of struggle a bit to try to get that connection, but you hung in there. I hung in there.
We did it. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Come back on and when you talk about your anthology piece.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to. Sure.
Yeah. Cool. Good deal. Well, yeah, Jorge, thank you. We're already at our hour mark, so that was
amazing. Yeah, no, it went fast. Yeah. And I'm looking at your room is like so amazing. Like you have all these things everywhere. I wish I had that, but I'm so neurotic. Like I have to constantly change things. Like I can't do that. Put everything up in a week. You know what? Let's change this. So, but you have all this cool stuff. Like I see the Spider-Man, the famous Amazing Fantasy. It's like, you're like I said, you have a man of many interests here. You got cinema here. You have all this stuff. You're very cultured.
Very cool.
High culture too.
I wouldn't go that far, but
yeah. Yes, very high culture. Yes, but but do you write, or do you do you draw yourself?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Oh yeah, I mean we can talk about that off the air because this is all about you right now, Jorge.
Okay.
But yeah,
right. Okay, just asking you.